announced to the Bronco Nagurski Trophy watch list, which goes to the college football's top defender, and his name has come up routinely when this discussion. I was working out earlier this morning and listening to Dusty and Danny as they got going. They get going at 5 a.m. here Central Time, and they were talking about some of the top defenders in college football, and Perkins' name really rolled off pretty early. Cannell brought him up as one of the top players and one of the early players to keep his eye on. And look, it's baffling for a lot of national people as well when they were watching Perkins last season, and people that were just watching LSU football. Dusty Dvorak had a couple of games of LSU last year. He also called the Arkansas game Perkins' freshman year, right? So he saw Perkins at nearly his apex. I mean, maybe his best game that he's ever played at LSU.
And needed it.
Had to have it, right? Dvorak was on the call that day. So he saw Perkins, at his height of powers his freshman season, and then he had LSU a couple of times his sophomore year. And while he, still recognized that it was Perkins, he was out of position. He wasn't around the ball and making as much plays as normal. And typical bronze sexual.
You think he's in the crew? We don't know.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, he might
he
be
knows
Anthony
he's like
Edwards,
Noah.
man.
He's like Noah.
Yeah.
He knows no difference. He knows no difference. Right. I mean, poor guy.
It's Tommy Hodgson.
Exactly. Good morning, Christian. But there's a lot of expectation around Blake Baker putting Perkins right position, using him correctly, putting him back on the edge. People a little surprised. Both Cannell and Dvorak met Perkins at SEC Media Days. Or it may have just been Dvorak. Cannell met him at a different event. And both really surprised at how small he was. And that was something, I think that was an issue. It definitely is an issue if you want to play him inside, right? With, they obviously want to play him on the second level when you talk about his usage and where they ultimately see him. But he has bulked up.
Well, that's what they say, but I don't know how much you can put on that frame.
I agree. I think he's kind of tapped out.
That's the debate. It's not only how much can he put on, but you don't want to lose he is, because that's what makes him a game changer, is his ability to quick twitch, be an athlete. And I don't think he's going to carry bad weight, but I'm just interested to see how this move to, they say move to the middle. I wonder what that means. I don't think he's going to be playing middle linebacker in that regard. I think he's just kind of get him in more space and not have him be a one-trick pony. But the one trick is a great one to watch.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a world where Harold Perkins, if you manage it right, this is where Blake Baker comes into play, because they were 13th in the SEC in defense last year. It's not just going to be a Harold Perkins, and we call it an issue. He was still good last year. It just wasn't like you expected something that I don't think anybody could have lived up to. But what he had more tackles last year and 2 less sacks. So he had 5.5 sacks last year. His freshman year, he had 7.5. I think people are waiting for that, I guess, like a Tyrann Mathieu type impact, but he was still solid last year.
He was. He was. And look, here's what I'll say about Harold Perkins' sophomore year is that he's a great example. And I think, I say this on little league fields, and I think you find this in the professional ranks. Cream's always going to rise to the top.
Mm-hmm.
It is, water's going to find its level. And Harold Perkins, no matter the scheme, no matter the grouping, the personnel, whatever it is, if he's on the field, he's going to make plays. He's too good, too fast. He's too intellectual, really, when you talk about his IQ of the game, to really not be around. But you have a great chance to put him in some areas where, it kind of baffles me that after what football coaches saw of him his freshman season, that you just don't say, hey, man, this guy could probably be the best edge rusher, best edge guy in college football, and he helps the team the most there now. Let's just put him in the best place that gives us the chance to win. And I think Baker's going to do that. I think that there's, when he was here, we were talking to him, and he talked a lot about Harold Perkins, and we talked a little bit about it even off camera, and not as if, we're divulging any inside information. We were just talking a little bit further about what we talked about on the air. And there is a lot of like, hey, man, don't overthink it. It's a lot of like, hey, like just step away from it for a minute and say to yourself,
let him go be a football player.
Let him just put him out where he's supposed to be, and just let him hunt, let him go eat, right? Because like we said, the cream's going to find the top. It will, if he's in the right position, he's going to be Harold Perkins, whether he weighs 235 or whether he weighs 205. I don't think, sure, that stuff matters when you're talking about longevity, making it through the season, staying healthy. But, all things equal, and he's right, and he's in the right position, he is the best defensive player in college football.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. There's just, he has a skill set and does things that you just can't coach, and you can't find in other prospects. I think that, when you're at a school like LSU, you recruit at the level that they do, where every single year there's 5-star guys, right? Whether it's DJ Pickett or Bryce Underwood, or whether it's Mason Smith. Every year there's going to be a 5-star guy. I think once every 10 to 12, 15 years in that time period, there's going to be this generational player, or at least some type of unique player that just doesn't feel like everybody else, right? For every DJ Pickett, there's a Christian Fulton. And I'm not saying that you take these guys for granted, but, we've been lucky as LSU fans to see a ton of talent roll through here. In the same sense, didn't Tyrann Mathieu stick out? Didn't Leonard Fournette stick out? Hasn't Harold Perkins stood out when he was kind of free reigning? So, it's once, not in a lifetime, but every
you don't get them every
10
cycle.
to 12 years that one comes along and you're like, hey, you got a great opportunity to just kind of do things a little different with a player that has a very unique style. Is that what he's going to do in the NFL? Is Tyrann Mathieu doing in the NFL? Has he ever done in the NFL what he did in college? Not really. He wasn't ever the honey badger in the NFL where he was stripping the ball away from people in the open field and returning punts and running around like he was on a video game. But he was the smartest guy on defense. He was always in the right position. He was routinely making plays, and his toughness always showed. Like, his size never was a detriment to him. Now, 12 years into the league, he's still 5'9", 190 pounds.
Going to year 12.
You know what I mean?
32.
It's not as if he got to the league and became 6'4", 230. It was a lot of the same things that he was using at LSU. He was just faster and better than everybody in college, right? He could run around out there because he saw it faster than people did. He knew where he was supposed to be. He was just a special player, right? I think Perkins is kind of like that. I don't expect him to go to the NFL and look like he did as a freshman against Bama or Arkansas. But I do expect him to get to the NFL and be one of the best 11 defenders that a team has, and them find a position for him, and him be some sense of a playmaker, not necessarily he may become a all-pro, Pro Bowler, best at his position like Mathieu did, right? There was a 2-3 year stretch where Mathieu was the best safety in the league. and has now kind of elevated himself into the conversation where I saw where they revisited the 2012 draft. And Matthew was a part of the 2013 draft that Matthew was a part of. And they kind of reshuffled him. They tiered everybody. And Matthew, I believe, has it on his social media. And I don't want to get too far into it, but they had Matthew as like a first round. Like if you had to go back and do it, Matthew would have been like a first round pick. He was one of the elite guys that they had. It was like 4 or 5 guys. And I'm sorry, I'll find it for you and we can reference. Are you looking for this?
Yeah.
It was pretty cool, and the graphic was pretty cool. And Matthew kind of used it as, even like you can sense it still, like kind of motivates him. It still kind of pisses him off that he slid. I believe he was picked 69 in the draft. He was a third rounder to the Cardinals.
When he had to have Patrick Peterson vouch for him.
Yeah,
there was a real stigma around.
The team's best player had to go to bat for.
That played with him. And like that's, if you were.
It was kind of like, I got him.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to be a problem.
He's not the problem that y'all think
right.
he
Like,
is.
He's not this huge issue. Again, I mean, just.
And he's been going like almost berserker mode on Twitter because he's tired of being doubted. Like there's a lot of somebody got into like
something's going on,
and he was like, I'm still doing it. I'm one of the best to ever play the position.
Well, I saw the players,
and my numbers are still.
The players voted on the top 8 or 9 safeties in the league, and had him still.
Top 5.
Like yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, like just strictly players. Like talking about like. You just got to really understand what he still brings to the locker room, to the game. He's not still breaking on the ball like he's 25, but I mean, he's usually in the right position. I mean, like he's where he's supposed to be. LSU, as we said, hits the field tomorrow. Players report today. Big day up on campus as you're fitting for your uniforms, fitting for your practice gear, getting all the gear today. As we talked about that a lot. Hopefully, we can get back to talking about Harold Perkins as the playmaker that he is.